Well, thank me already, because I've kind of got good news about the next generation iPhones. This was reported on a while back, but I didn't get around to covering it because I am a lazy human being. But I want to talk about it now because it gives us a glimmer of hope, which we don't have a lot of in the tech space, but when it's there, I like to highlight it. So here's why the iPhone price hike might not be so bad after all. Let's begin. Of course, you guys know the drill. Take everything with a huge boulder-sized rock of salt, because things could change. These are all just reports and rumors. But Ming-Chi Kuo does have a fairly reliable track record, and he definitely knows a lot about supply chains, which this rumor pertains to directly. So that's why I have a higher chance of believing it. But a while back, you guys may remember me talking about how the next generation iPhones are going to be expensive. We got lucky, okay? We got lucky last year with those iPhones because Apple decided to eat a lot of that extra cost themselves, not push it onto the consumer, because they wanted to focus more on getting iOS into the hands of more people, and more revenue can be generated through the accessories and from services. That's why AirPods are selling so well, the Apple Watch is selling well, and Apple TV Plus will probably never know if it's actually doing well because everyone gets the free year. Apple News Plus is probably tanking, though, I can confirm that. Apple Card, maybe. That's doing well. People are in debt. Yay! Congrats, Apple, you made it. But I kept suggesting that next year's iPhones were definitely going to be more expensive because Kuo himself told us the new design with the squared off edges is going to be more expensive to manufacture, along with 5G technology, which always comes along with more price hikes because those modems are usually more expensive. And of course, the larger display, all the other features that are going to be implemented in the next generation iPhones, not to mention the import tariff. But Ming-Chi Kuo probably watched my video and he saw me complaining about it because he brought up that the price hike actually should not be that bad. He's estimating around $50 more than what they charged last year, which obviously a price hike is always to be annoyed with. It would be great if they could just keep all the prices the same, but we don't live in that fantasy world. If we're living in fantasy world, wouldn't it be great if these were all free and we could just hand them out to everyone at no additional cost? Okay, too political. Moving on. He said that even though the next generation iPhones on average could cost more than $30 to $100 per unit to manufacture, which may not seem like a lot to us, rich boys who are like $100 Yeah, that's nothing. But keep in mind, the manufacturing costs alone for the iPhones we're currently buying, which are $1,000 plus sometimes, those are in the $400 department in just sheer parts, okay? It's not that there's a $600 profit because Apple had to come up with the assembly lines, the software, they update these things over time, plus there's R&D, there's tons of research that goes into the development of the phone that's very hard to account for. But the actual parts themselves, we're looking at around $400, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, depending on the model we go with. So adding $30 to $100 to that point can make the iPhone quite expensive. So Kuo is suggesting that Apple is not going to be pushing that increase in parts and increased prices in manufacturing onto the consumer, and instead is trying to directly tackle their supply chains to try to save money in that department, which is honestly a great idea. Why weren't they doing this before? We kind of need Apple to focus on how could we make every aspect of building the phone cheaper. Otherwise, you're going to make phones way too expensive and no one wants to buy them. So Cult of Mac recently reported on this, and they mentioned suppliers may need non-recurring engineering payment to help keep them afloat during periods of slow iPhone sales, but that might not be a problem for most suppliers anymore once Apple starts releasing iPhones at multiple times throughout the year. This is another report I haven't talked about, but we'll get into that later. There's a few rumors suggesting that Apple might start releasing iPhones at 2 times in the year, which personally I'm not a fan of, but it sounds like Apple could save money with supply chains if they ended up paying for parts up front at a one-time cost instead of on a more monthly basis, which is what they've been doing. So apparently, from what Kuo is telling us, there are ways Apple can cut costs on the supply chains, therefore making the iPhones cheaper to produce while still gaining lots of features we care about. And if it turns out that the iPhone 12 or whatever starts at $750, I think most people would be happy with that. Even if across the board, like the 11 Pro Max is $1,100 and then the 12 Pro Max comes out and it's $1,150, I mean, yeah, definitely still on the high end, and there will be people that complain, but if we get a decent amount of features out of it, I think most people will still be comfortable paying for it. Or dream scenario, what if the prices all stayed the same? That would be insane, so I'm not gonna keep my expectations that high. But anyway, thought I would share the good news with you. Hopefully iPhone price hikes aren't that bad. And what do you think? Can they go much higher, or are they kind of maxed out? Should they try to get even cheaper than they already are? Or is it okay for them to go higher? Feel free to let me know on Twitter, join our Discord, and we can bicker more. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.